Chapter 12 The Nest. On the bright side, said Harry, most of Rowle's goons were upstairs, and the stairs are out. On the darker side, said Gary Oakes, his voice betraying his physical pain, there are 2 more sets of stairs in that first hall we came through. Oh, and somewhere there are vampires. They don't show up with the revealing charm. I'm not comfortable with vampires, boss, Judy Penrose informed him. They can be, well, a bit tricky to deal with. I don't think they're here to make you comfortable, Judy, Ricky said, also in pain. Ooh, Anya, that looks sore. Anya Pruitt's head was burnt along one side. What makes me sore is that I had my hair done a couple of days ago, she said through gritted teeth. This is a dead end, said Harry. We don't want to be trapped here, so we'd better move. They crossed the room to the arched opening. As they moved, Judy patched up their wounds. The archway led to an unlit corridor. I'll take a super-sensory solution and lead the way, said Harry. We don't want to announce where we are. Don't forget, we have the indifference effect still. It may not be as effective now that they know we're here, but the darkness will help. Try to keep quiet and move as smoothly as you can. Harry led on, able to see but disturbed by the noise his auras were making. Every grunt of pain or hiss of agony cut through him. Why was he always leading friends to their doom? He wondered about Naz guarding the front door. Did he know that Rowle's people had detected them? Had the other Death Eaters come back? If they came back one at a time, Naz would be all right. If they came back together... Harry couldn't think about that now. He had to focus on his team, those who were still alive. Focus. 3 corners in quick succession. He hoped they were not in another maze. He didn't have an outstanding record with mazes. There was a door. The door could hide anything, but at least it was not likely that they were in a maze. He tapped Ricky's hand, which was on his shoulder, signalling a stop. Here was a problem. With the super-sensory effect, everything was already light enough for him. But the others could see nothing. He needed to light his wand enough for them to make out the door. But then it might be too bright for him. He turned and whispered to Ricky to light his wand, just enough for the team to see. Harry shaded his eyes as Ricky lit the wand. Harry found his eyes adjusted quickly to the extra light. He drew the team's attention to the door. It's our only choice, he whispered. Get down onto one side. Wand's out and ready. He tried the handle as they moved into position. It turned. Ricky turned out his wand light. Harry opened the door. The chamber beyond was dimly lit and church-like, with a high-vaulted ceiling. It had a thick, dank smell. There were rows of stone columns along each side, and 8 or 10 long boxes laid out at the far end. One of several dark shapes hanging from the beams above dropped to the stone-flagged floor without a sound. Harry could see clearly that it was a human-like figure wrapped in a black cloak. The figure rose to its feet. It was tall and had blonde hair. It was Rowle. Potter, said Rowle, the reverberations of his deep voice rumbling around the chamber. We've been waiting. Come in and bring your friends. Harry, one hand behind his back, signalled to his team to look up. He hoped there was enough light for them to see his signal. He moved forward, taking his time and taking care to make no sudden moves. The indifference draft's effects, it seemed, did not affect Rowle. Of course they didn't. Rowle was a vampire now, and vampires have sharper senses. They were also less susceptible to the effects of most magic. What brings you here, head aura? Rowle spoke Harry's title as an insult. Why have you come to my house to die? That wasn't my plan, Harry said. Rowle laughed. Plan. As if you had a plan. The great Harry Potter doesn't need a plan. People will flock round him, like the sheep they are, and die to save him. You've already lost one, Potter, and the rest will die for you before I hang you up to drain you dry. There was a rustling sound among the beams above their heads. Harry kept his eyes on Rowle, but he knew that it was the sound of vampires stirring. Harry hoped none of his team would do anything to trigger a fight. The fight that was coming promised to be bloody and exhausting. Even if they survived, there were still all the other witches and wizards in the way of them getting out. He knew Rowle was goading him, but he couldn't shake the idea that he'd brought more colleagues and friends to their deaths. Harry shook his head. "You don't understand, do you? We're doing our job. Part of that job is the risk of death. We all understand that. I chose this job. I've seen what can happen. We all have. I made the choice to stay in the job, and I was right to stay. There will always be disruptors like you, or Rabastan Lestrange, or even Voldemort. There will always be the fight to keep the world decent, safe, and free. We chose that fight. You chose the wrong side." Rowle laughed again. The laugh was a hideous laugh. It had a gurgling to it, a thickness of blood. Rowle's laughter echoed around the room, and where the echoes came back, they had a sound like the scraping of stone. "All this stupid confidence, Potter," Rowle sneered, moving slowly forwards. "So bloody righteous. You'll all die here. I'm in no rush. I'll make it last. It'll be enjoyable watching you see your friends beg to die. I might even turn you and make you my slave." "You're forgetting something, Rowle," Harry pointed out. "We're a team of trained and seasoned aurors. You may be tougher than your flunkies we met upstairs, but we're witches and wizards, and we have wands." Rowle, now closer, grinned. There were more teeth there than anyone would be comfortable seeing. Rowle had always been tall. Now he was monumental. "There's something you're forgetting, Potter," Rowle hissed. "Old magic. As a vampire, I can't use wand magic anymore, but I can still use the weapons and tokens created by the old magic. And I only need one. I don't want to spoil the fun, but this one token gives me what I and my brothers and sisters need. Can you guess what it is, Potter? You've met it before. A Lauria had one. Very inconvenient for a stick-waver like you." Harry remembered. He remembered the lights going out in Lauria's lair. He remembered trying to light his wand to see. "Lumos Maxima!" he called out, holding his wand out. Rowle's grin widened. Then the room became darker, not lighter. Harry could still see. His supersensory solution had not yet worn off. But he knew Rowle had plunged the room into darkness, and the rustling overhead became a hideous flapping. Harry dived and rolled to one side. He saw some of his aurors do the same. Anya Pruitt screamed, borne to the floor by the weight of a vampire crashing down from above. Rowle had leapt at Harry, but missed as Harry dived away. Gary Oakes had a knife and was stabbing a vampire in the side, while his other hand lashed about blindly, trying to keep its fangs away from his neck. The vampire barely noticed the stabbing. Ricky was throwing away a file. With a rush of glee, Harry realized it was Ricky's supersensory solution. The aurors had one each. If they had Ricky's presence of mind, they might survive. But for how long? Where was the victory going to come from? There was no way out. Outside the room there were still more than a dozen witches and wizards, armed and waiting. Rowle loomed over Harry. Harry was on the floor and up against a wall. He tried to roll away, but Rowle's hand darted out with the speed of a cobra strike. His claws bit into Harry's shoulder. Harry growled in pain. He thought he saw light a long way off. He tried to struggle free, but Rowle's claws bit into his shoulder and held him. "Look, Potter," Rowle snarled. "My family is feasting on your stupid auras. Watch them, I know you can see." One vampire crouched over a body. There was an obscenity in its gulping movements. Another was pinning Gary against a wall with one hand. Gary's feet were off the floor. The vampire was stabbing Gary with the claws of its other hand. Two vampires huddled over another body. One vampire screamed. Perhaps there was one aura left who was fighting back. It gave Harry no hope. The vampire screamed again. It was a scream of frustration. Rowle turned to look, and Harry glimpsed a struggling form. Rowle screamed. Ropes were winding around him, pinning his arms and wings to him. Harry saw the light in the distance again. He could see a figure silhouetted in a doorway, brandishing a wand. The ban on wand magic must end at the doorway, Harry realised. Someone, Naz presumably, had found a way in. Harry scrambled to his feet. A flash of red light, bright to Harry's eyes, struck across the chamber, hitting a feasting vampire. Confringo would not kill a vampire, Harry knew, but that would sting. Harry shot across the chamber to the doorway. Naz must have summoned Harry, or rather summoned his clothes, and Harry with them. Harry spun on his heels outside the doorway. His wand was already in his hand. Here Naz blasted and bound the vampires, and summoned the auras. "Bombarda Maxima on 3, then dive out of the way," Harry told Naz. Their spell bounced around the chamber, and Harry's heart sank. But it worked, bringing down masonry and several wizards from the floor above, on top of the struggling vampires. Stone dust belched through the doorway. Naz choked and coughed on the dust. "Harry, Rick, Gary, follow me. I got in through the back door. We can get out, I hope. Bring the others. Where's Mo?" Harry shook his head. He didn't make it. There's no way of getting him now. Harry stopped Gary's bleeding and helped him to walk. Naz did the same for Ricky and levitated the bodies of the 2 witches to follow them. They jogged as well as they could through several passageways and up a long flight of shallow stairs. Naz called a halt at one corner and listened for signs of pursuers. Harry could hear nothing, with Gary wheezing right next to his ear. The effects of Harry's supersensory solution had worn off. Naz turned to Harry. "We might have to fight, Harry," he said in a low voice. "Are you up to it?" "Can you stand, Gary?" Harry asked. Gary nodded. He was shaking, but he stood unaided. Harry stepped forward, his wand out. "I'm ready, Naz. The super senses have gone, though." Naz bared his teeth. Just as well. This could get noisy. The corner was a T-junction. Harry faced to the right, Naz to the left. Harry petrified the 2 wizards he saw before they could react. Instinct made him turn and drop to the floor. There were 4 people in the other direction, 3 wizards and a witch. 2 of the wizards were dropping to the floor. The witch was throwing herself down to crouch behind the bodies of the 2 wizards. The remaining wizard shot at Naz. Naz gasped in pain. This last wizard was winding up for the killing shot. "Confringo!" Harry snarled. The blast took the wizard off his feet and slammed him into the wall at the next corner of the corridor. Harry threw up a shield as the witch sent a stream of stunning spells at them. Naz dropped and rolled to the side. He aimed his wand through a gap between the shield and the floor. "Avada Kedavra!" The witch slumped, her upper half on top of the petrified form of her colleague. Naz's killing curse had been on target. They got to their feet. Naz grunted with pain as he stopped a hole in his right shoulder from bleeding. "This way," said Naz through clenched teeth, leading the way towards the 4 fallen Death Eaters. Harry put his arm around Gary and helped him forward. Ricky limped unaided and levitated the bodies of Anya and Judy. Stepping over their stricken opponents, they rounded 2 more corners and came to a door. "Bugger, they've sealed it again," said Naz, trying the door. "Can you do anything, Ricky?" "Let me see," Ricky slurred. Harry and Naz caught each other's eye. They knew Ricky was suffering, possibly going into shock. "Someone's coming," Gary warned. "Go on, I'll get them." A rush of cool air signalled that Ricky had got the door open. Harry glanced towards it to check. He looked back at Gary. There was a flash of green light, and Gary toppled to the floor. Harry shouted, "Bombarda!" In a scramble, they made it into the open night air. 3 auras and 3 bodies. "We have to make it to the shops," Harry growled. "Try, operate," Ricky murmured. "Think it's gone." "Form a chain," said Harry. "I've got an emergency port key." 6 of the 7 auras who had set out appeared in Harry's office. 3 injured, 3 dead.